What is going on? This is Cody, and you are tuned to B-Boy 45 broadcasting from the Seacrest Studios here at Children's Hospital, Colorado. We've got another special edition of the latest news to keep you in the groove with Maya. Maya, why is this edition so special?
Because Jon Cryer is calling in.
Jon Cryer, woo! So excited to have you and your ceiling. Welcome. How are you?
I'm great. Usually I have a very cool stand that holds up my phone in a way that makes this type of thing not happen.
Yeah.
But at the moment, it's happening anyway.
It's cool. It's cool to know that even super cool, awesome, famous people like you sometimes have technical difficulties.
Yeah, it's a new world, people. You're going to learn that about us.
That's right. Maya, take it away, girl.
Okay, so my first question for you is who or what inspired you to start acting?
Well, I grew up kind of backstage. My parents were both performers. My mother was also a playwright. So I was always around it as a kid. And so I loved the world. I loved being backstage and seeing the energy of it was kind of amazing and fun and crazy. And so I loved that. I also loved TV and just loved watching TV. And I knew, and there were child performers on TV, and I would see them and I would say, oh, I can do that. I'd watch the Brady Bunch. I don't know if you're even familiar with the Brady Bunch, which was a very popular show when I was a kid. The Brady Bunch and the Partridge Family were the two big ones. And I just was so jealous of the kids who were up on screen.
Oh, cool. So you got your start on Broadway. Do you have a favorite Broadway play?
A favorite Broadway play? Well, yes. My favorite Broadway show is a show called Sweeney Todd, which and that was the kind of show. It was a show that I saw when I was about 15 years old, and there are some pieces of art you see at certain times in your life that are just so huge and amazing to you that they just change the way you see everything. And that was the show for me. And it's been done a lot since then in a lot of different ways. And it's always an amazing piece of art.
Oh, cool. Yeah. During quarantine, it's given me a chance to become obsessed with a lot of Broadway soundtracks. So,
not disappoint you. It's pretty great. Now, what are your favorites, may I ask?
Oh, my very favorite is Spring Awakening.
Okay, fair enough.
And then I also love like Hamilton and Dear Evan Hansen and the soundtrack to First Date.
Okay, I have not actually heard First Date, so I'm behind you. Some work to do.
I love the music to that one too. So,
yeah, it's all, and it's so personal. It's so a lot of the time it's where you are in your life. I mean, I have to imagine that kids seeing Hamilton now are just their minds are exploding because it's such a Hamilton is such a it's a masterful piece of work by a lot of artists who are just at the top of their game. And it's a really remarkable piece of work in that way.
Yeah, I actually, I realized we watched it on Disney Plus over the weekend. And I realized I hadn't heard all the songs from it, and I also realized I didn't know everybody who was in it because I had no idea that Jonathan Groff was in it. And then he came on, and I was like, okay, he was only on stage for a couple minutes, but he was my favorite character.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's absolutely. Now he's on. Yeah, he's in the original Spring Awakening. Yeah, no, he's astonishing, absolutely astonishing, and so funny in that part. So funny.
Yeah. Yeah, so I've been listening to all of his songs from Hamilton. So you played Ducky in the John Hughes movie Pretty in Pink, and I love that movie. And Ducky is amazing. What was it like to be part of such an iconic movie?
It was great. Interestingly, at the time, John Hughes had made a few movies. He had made 16 Candles and Breakfast Club. And Breakfast Club came out right after I had been cast in the movie. I had read the script and thought it was great. And really, I fell in love with Ducky the same way a lot of people did. But when I went to see Breakfast Club, I kind of got scared because Breakfast Club was so good and it was clearly an iconic movie the day they released it. It wasn't. It was kind of, everybody kind of just got that this was going to be defining for a generation. So when we started Pretty in Pink, we kind of knew that we were doing something special because Breakfast Club had been so terrific, and that sort of gave everybody a real feeling like, let's take this seriously. Let's a lot of teen movies at the time were just about being silly and making people laugh and stuff like that, and that's great. But Pretty in Pink kind of aspired to be something a little more serious. So we kind of knew we wanted to nail it and do it well. And the director was a guy named Howie Deutsch, actually. John Hughes did not direct Pretty in Pink. He just wrote it and produced it. And we all had a great sort of spirit of trying to make a great movie for teens. And the fact that it stuck around is a very gratifying fact.
Oh, cool. Yeah, there was one summer that my sister and our mom showed us like every 80s movie. So Pretty in Pink and The Breakfast Club and Top Gun and all those movies.
Yeah. There's a lot of similar sort of themes at the time, and it, it was a very iconic period of movie. My two favorites from the era of teen movies were probably Say Anything and Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Those were probably my two favorites.
Oh, cool.
Have you seen either of those?
I've seen Say Anything. I haven't seen the other one.
Yes, Fast Times at Ridgemont High is also really, really wonderful. Say Anything's amazing. Say Anything is just... and actually, the great thing is, much later in my life, I finally got to meet Ione Skye, who's the wonderful star of that, and we've become friends since then. And it's so weird that during the '80s we never met. During the time of making lots and lots of movies, never met.
Okay. That's my mom trying to sneak out. Bye! She would, there was one time she was trying to sneak in to take a picture, and she hunched over and was like trying to bend down so she wouldn't see. And the person I was talking to just stopped in the middle of his sentence, and he was like, "Do you have a dog?"
That's great. It always reminds me of that. You ever see that BBC clip of the man is doing an interview and his baby walks in, his toddler child?
Oh no!
Like the greatest. It's the greatest clip because the kid walks in like the kid might as well be in raid. Mortified. serious update on North Korea, and he's trying to look like a very smart person, and his toddler is not allowing him to. If you get a chance, I think it's BBC Dad. Yeah, check that out on YouTube.
Okay, I will.
Okay.
Yeah. So your character in Pretty in Pink, Ducky, is so funny. And I was wondering, how could you play him with a straight face?
As an actor, that is always the key when if you're going to be in comedy and be in trying to do comedy in films. There's this great feeling when you read a script and it's already funny, but you also come up with ideas of how you're going to make it even funnier. You get this weird sense of confidence that sort of washes over you, and you don't crack up. Actually, interestingly, I made a movie called Hot Shots years ago, which was a very off on Top Gun, and that was actually the hardest movie to keep a straight face in because it was just the most ridiculous stuff that we were doing. But that's why you make the big bucks.
So you were in the 2019 Hulu movie Big Time Adolescence alongside Pete Davidson. Do you have any fun stories or memories from filming?
We filmed that up in Syracuse, New York, which is a place that doesn't usually, it's not where people don't think of that like Hollywood. But the crazy thing was a bunch of movies were shooting up there at the same time. And so I kept hoping to run into famous people, but it didn't. In fact, Pete Davidson was dating Ariana Grande at the time, and I was like, "Where's my Ariana Grande sighting?" Either, but it was funny actually because Pete Davidson is stand-up. He's a stand-up comedian, and he kind of sheepishly came up to me at the beginning of the shoot and said, I think you should know that my very first joke in stand-up was about you. I had actually seen it, and it was pretty funny. It's not really kid appropriate, so I won't go into it. But it was so funny that he still felt bad about that. Like it was like I might actually take an insult at it. And no, I was proud to be there at the beginning of his career. I take zero insult at being a part of his act.
Oh, cool. So you've starred and guest starred in so many amazing projects. Have you had a favorite project or character you've played?
A favorite project or character that I've played? I've been playing Lex Luthor for a while on Supergirl. And that has been a great experience for me because I grew up loving the comics in a completely unhealthy way. I collected them, all the comic book movies. I got to be in, one of my biggest career goals was to be in a Superman movie. And I got to be in one. It was called Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. And it was with Christopher Reeve, who was the probably the first big, incredibly popular Superman in the movies. And I loved his version of Superman, and that I got to be in one of his Superman movies was great. But a crazy thing happened. The company that was making the movie ran out of money while we were still making the movie. So they released the movie basically unfinished. And so it doesn't make sense. And so the movie is kind of a mess. It's not a particularly good Superman movie. And I always felt bad about that. I always felt like, I really wanted to be a part of the Superman world, and that the one movie I did ended up not working very well made me kind of sad. So when they asked me to play Lex Luthor on Supergirl, I thought, oh, here's my chance to be sort of back in that universe and to do it right. And what's been great is the writers on the show and the rest of the cast and the producers have just been amazing to me and have created a great villain. I mean, I get to be so evil. I mean, he's horrible. He's horrible. And a great thing about playing somebody horrible all day when you're working is that you feel great at the end of the day, because you just any anger you had, any irritation you had at life in general, it's all gone by the end of the day because you just spit it all out. And, really.
Oh, cool. So you're an actor, comedian, and producer. Is there one that you like more than the other, or do you like them all equally?
I like being an actor the most. Being a producer is actually a combination of all of the things I hate about show business in one job. But because getting the things out there is really, really satisfying. Being a producer is making phone calls and begging people for money and pitching, which is a thing where you get an idea for a show and then you have to take it out to all the people who might possibly make your show and try to convince them that it's a good show. And it's a grueling process where you just go from place to place to place to place, and you do a little show and let them know how the show can be. So being a producer is my least favorite. But once you produce something, when it's actually on the screen, it's so satisfying that it feels kind of worth it.
Oh, cool. So do you have any upcoming projects?
Right now, as a producer, we're working on a bunch that haven't shot yet, and everybody's trying to figure out, with the COVID going on, how are we going to do that? So we have a bunch of things that are on the way as soon as we can shoot them. And I'm really excited about the next season of Supergirl. I'm supposed to go back up in September to shoot that in Vancouver, in Canada, where they shoot it. But again, everybody's sort of waiting, because the most important thing, everybody, we love making this art. We love putting it out there and entertaining people, but at the same time, no, it's not worth anybody getting sick for. So the priority has to be, how are we going to do this and keep everybody safe and well? So that's what they're trying to figure out now. And a lot of us are hoping to be back in the studio shooting in September.
So you wrote and produced the independent film Went to Coney Island on a Mission from God, Be Back by 5. What inspired you to write that?
I wanted to do something with a really long title. No, but what inspired me to do that was that something very similar had happened to me. It was a movie about two friends who basically, they hear a rumor that a friend of theirs is homeless, and they don't believe it, because they never saw any sign that their life would have been that difficult. But they use it as an excuse to skip out on work and go looking for him, and then they find him, and that's the kernel of the story. That had really happened to me. So it was a very it was an experience that really touched me, and I felt like I felt like I had to do something about it, and so I wrote this script, and we were able to finance it as a very low budget independent movie, and it's something I'm still pretty proud of to this day. But it was that was my first taste of being a producer and all the really hard things you have to do, and I learned a lot.
Cool. So you played Alan Harper in the show 2.5 Men with Charlie Sheen, and you won 2 Emmys for your role. So one, I just want to say congratulations.
Thank you.
And 2, what was it like to be part of such a long-running and popular show?
That's a very strange feeling for an actor. Most actors just do gigs. We get a movie and you shoot that for, maybe 3 months if that's a long shoot, or you do a play for a few months. Actors are not used to having jobs that last for years. It's a very unusual situation. And so when we started on 2.5 Men, I had done a bunch of television shows that had failed fairly quickly. And so it was a really strange feeling to be on a show that just kept going and kept going. And one where we weren't worried about not having a job the next week, that was a really lovely feeling. You feel secure, and we'd have audiences come in on every Friday night when we'd shoot shows, and they knew the show and really loved it, and were really excited about the next episode. And that was it was a really unusual feeling for an actor, and I hope someday to do another sitcom like that, because performing for an audience every week is just thrilling. It's a great feeling for an actor. It's a great way to connect with people. And, you don't get in this business. You don't become an actor because you don't want to communicate with people. You want to. So actually having people in the room with you laughing and enjoying your work every week is amazing.
Cool. So you had a recurring role in the show Ncis, which I know you had said that you really wanted to be on that show. So how did that opportunity come about?
I loved NCIS from the first season. NCIS started the same year that 2.5 Men started, and we were both on CBS. So I would always run into the cast members whenever CBS would do promotional events, because they would have the casts of various shows together, and I would always geek out because I was such a fan of the shows. Oh my God, the NCIS people are here. Oh my God. Those parties, I would always find a way to corner one of them and say, okay, I want to be on your show, but I want to be because they would always begin with a crime. And I was like, okay, I want to be a dead guy at the beginning of the show. I want to die entertainingly, and then just be on the slab for the rest of the show, because they always have to burn stuff, but they're working on people. And they always sort of laughed at me and were like, ha, yeah, right. Yeah, sure. And finally, after 2.5 Men was over, I get a call and kid, you're getting your wish, except I wasn't going to die. I was actually going to save Mark Harmon's life. Mark Harmon's the star of the show. And they wanted me to be his heart surgeon. And I was like, okay, what about me being Alan on 2.5 Men made you think heart surgeon? Kind of a lovable screw up. I don't know. I want Alan working on my heart, but no, they had a completely different character in mind, and it was just, for me, it was a dream come true, because I had loved the cast. I had really, the show is very old school. It's but it just has great characters, and so not only just getting a chance to be on it once, but then they gave my character an arc and everything, and I was like, oh my God, they gave me I was on 3 or 4 episodes, and it was I was just geeking out the entire time.
Cool. Sorry, trying to flip the... Yeah. inspired you to write your memoir so that happened?
Wow, that's really funny. That's a good question, because what happened was I had, when I was doing 2.5 Men, a lot of crazy stuff happened because my co-star Charlie Sheen started having a serious problem with drugs and acting super duper crazy, and they, and it was weird because of the internet, everybody was able to see how crazy he was going. So when that was over, a lot of people wanted to talk to me about it for years. Literally every time I did an interview, people would ask me about it. And finally, my manager said, hey, would you ever want to write a book about that? And I said, no, I don't want to write a book about that, but I would like to write a book about, just about my experiences in show business, because it's been crazy. My career has been absolutely nuts. And my manager said, I think there is a publisher who might want to do that. And so really it was my publisher and my agents, it was really my manager and my agent's idea. It wasn't my idea to write a book. And once they found a publisher who wanted to do it, I suddenly was like, oh, I have to write a book now. So I did the best I could, and it was great fun. It ended up being a really interesting experience, because you sort of look back on all the things and you go, well, what would anybody actually care about? And to look at your, and then you start to think about your experiences and you're like, okay, if I wrote about this, I want to be fair to the other people that experienced this. I'm not going to, so it makes you rethink a whole bunch of things in your life and why people treated you the way that they did, and, why the people that were good to you were so good to you, and why, the experiences that you had happened the way that they did. And that's a really, really interesting experience. It makes you rethink a lot of things that happened to you in your life.
Cool. So you're a part of the podcast Undisclosed, which investigates wrongful convictions in the U.S. criminal justice system. I find your podcast and the criminal justice system so interesting. What made you want to be a part of that?
What made me want to be a part of that was I served on a jury twice. And if you ever get a chance, it's an amazing experience because you realize that TV shows do not represent criminal proceedings well. They're not nearly as entertaining as they seem on television. But also you realize that courtrooms are full of very and the whole process of how criminals are brought to court and how and how they're dealt with, and that whole process is full of human beings that are trying their best in many cases, but are all carrying their own bunches of flaws, and they make mistakes, and there are some people who are trying to mess up the system on purpose, and there are ways that the system is set up so that it's more important sometimes for people to just put somebody in jail than to actually find the right person who deserves that punishment. So in seeing that happen in front of me, and seeing how wrong the criminal justice system is presented on television, I heard of this podcast and became really fascinated by it, because what they do is they look into specific criminal cases in an incredibly detailed fashion, and they often find cases where huge mistakes have been made and people don't deserve to be convicted the way that they have been. And so I was just a fan, and I reached out to the people that made the podcast a few times on social media. And when they found out I was a fan, they said, "Hey, we need a host to host sort of a talk show interview started the program, like as you know, as you host your own interviews, they asked me to host it, and I said, sure, I would love to. And it was incredibly fascinating. I did, I think, 3 seasons of the show, and I learned so much, and I hope that I helped a lot of listeners learn a lot. The Undisclosed podcast is an amazing piece of work because they've been a part of several people getting exonerated and released from prison. And just actually one of the seasons I host was about a man named Dennis Perry, who's been in jail for 20 years and just got paroled. They've tentatively, the parole board has tentatively decided to let him out. He still has one more hearing, so it's not 100%, but they've made a huge difference and really sort of changed a lot of people's perception about the criminal justice system.
Oh, cool. I just this past year, first semester, I took street law, and it is my favorite class I've ever taken. We talked, we learned about the criminal justice system and different cases. And we did a couple mock trials, which was really fun. We actually watched, every Friday we watched an episode of the O.J. Simpson, the American crime story. And we were talking about, we all, the whole class saw everything that, all the stuff that they did wrong, that okay, they should have done this.
Yes.
And my favorite character was Marcia Clark. So I thought it was so cool to just watch her.
It was very, they did a great job of portraying, a side of the story that my generation did not see back when the trial actually happened. And that was the first time actually a lot of Americans saw a live video trial, and they saw all the stuff that happened in it. And it was a big eye opener for a lot of people. But I'm so glad you're enjoying that class. And as I said, if you ever get a chance to serve on a jury, it's an incredible, valuable experience. A lot of people try to find a way not to, because it takes some of your time and it takes you away from your job and your kids, and that's not ideal. But it's an amazing learning experience.
Oh, cool.
Maya, do you have about 2 or 3 more questions? Can you do that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What is your biggest pet peeve?
My biggest pet peeve? Wow. Okay. Gosh, I don't have that many pet peeves. I'm lucky that way. There's not a lot of things that just drive me crazy. Let's see. Not a big fan of misusing words. Like the word refuted used to mean when you proved something wrong, but you had to prove it. But now refuted just means that you disagreed with somebody. And that bothers me because that's like a real change in what the word means. And by the way, that's, literally millions of people misuse that word. And so many people now have misused it that dictionaries are starting to include the new meaning as opposed to the old meaning. And that makes me enraged. I get enraged about stupid stuff.
So do you have a motto or quotation that you live by?
For many years, my motto was moisturize, moisturize, moisturize. Because for actors, skincare is what it's all about. This is where the money is. But as a motto, I haven't. I've tried to just be good to people and take whatever opportunities to be good to people that I can get. But no, I haven't really had a to thine own self be true quote that I live by.
Cool. So my last question for you is, who do you consider to be a real life superhero and why?
Who do I consider to be a real life superhero? Well, let me give some thought to that. Well, I've been, as a child, I grew up I was born in 1965. And Dr. Martin Luther King died in 1968. But he had always amazed me because he made an incredibly brave choice during a time when things were not when he had no during the 60s. The civil rights struggle in America was becoming very violent. And he had a choice to make. He was not a guy who necessarily believed that nonviolence was the way to go. But after somebody put literally an explosive on his front porch and tried to murder him. He made this incredible choice. To make sure that this movement remained nonviolent at a time when America could have just exploded, and that is something that I will just admire forever. And I think he's an incredible man.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Yeah. Well, that was my last question. So thank you so much for calling in.
Oh, thank you, Maya. It was really a pleasure. Your mom is lovely as well. And thanks for asking.
Of course. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on and talking to me.
Oh, such a pleasure. Such a pleasure.
Awesome. We've enjoyed having you here at the latest news to keep you in the groove with Maya and Children's Hospital Colorado, Seacrest Studios. All of us say thank you so much. If you ever find yourself in Colorado, feel free to swing by. I'm sure so many patients would love to meet you. And thanks for spending time with us today. Have a good day.
My pleasure. Have a great one.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.